haven't made much about Genshin Impact lately, but I had one interesting thing I wanted to talk about with Genshin's story. From the title and when this video is released, you might assume that Wanderer is the huge missed opportunity character. While his story got me to make this video, there's another besides him I want to talk about. Oh, and this will have spoilers through version 3.3. Big spoilers discussed in 3, 2, 1. The first use of erasing data from Irmin's soul was dramatic. Greater Lord Rukkhadevata is gone. Our perception of history has changed. What else is missing from the annals of Tevat? The second use expanded our knowledge a bit more. You can't erase yourself, and metaphorical stories will survive, even if names do not. Suddenly, Venti being a bard weaving stories takes a new twist. However, one aspect rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, me included. We liked Scaramouche, and his character arc ended not with a bang, but with, well, nothing at all. It's not as bad as I initially thought it would be, as Wanderer is at least an angry jerk. If he had stayed the soft boy he was for a few minutes, he would just be a completely different character. We even see him get a vision, something I'd wanted to see happen in-game for quite a long time. Yes, I know it happens in the R&R quest too. But what was lost was potential stories. Scaramouche was an important character, known or even feared by many. And now they don't remember him. Part of the appeal of Genshin characters is all the relationships they have with each other. No waifu is an island. Speaking of relationships, that's a good segue into what I really wanted to talk about. Because the real wasted opportunity is not the Wanderer. Scaramouche got a lot of scenes and interactions that at least the player remembers, if not everyone involved. He will probably remain relevant in future plots, and he helped our understanding of the world and the lore. The real character who seems to be going absolutely nowhere is Kujo Sara. Sara is absolutely devoted to the shogun, and has her world shattered when she learns her own adopted family does not share her devotion. She goes to Tenshukaku and gets knocked out cold by Signora before the player arrives. And that's it. She's never been the focus of the story, or even received development since. All we know is that she still really adores the shogun, and she has quite a few.
The statue of Her Excellency, the almighty Narukami Agosho, god of thunder.
Sara has no story quest, no hangout event, and no close ties to anyone. But she has a huge potential to have very interesting interactions. Sara is a character in a position I've never really seen explored in fiction. If you know some good examples of this, let me know. She is relatively close, at least positionally, to a physical god, but not privy to everything going on behind the scenes. Yet she is more than familiar enough with the shogun that she should be able to see the dramatic change that has taken place in the span of a few weeks, if not a few days depending on how much the player rushes the story. The shogun, unapproachable and unfaltering, changes her mind and moreover becomes far more personable.
The almighty shogun wishes to read light novels?
Yes. Any recommendations?
Yet outside of the single scenes of the shogun in public at the start of her story quest, the shogun doesn't really interact with the common people. And Sara could be the perfect conduit for this. She's important enough to have reason to interact with the shogun, and the only real issue with exploring this story is that there's no good reason for the traveler to be around to witness any of it. There's a good reason the shogun is generally distant. Only the boldest characters would willingly approach her, even if it's fun for us, the audience, to see reactions to her. Most recently, the shogun briefly cameoed at the Test of Courage limited event, and everyone was afraid of her, and she left. The shogun's too important a character to play a prominent role on a silly side quest, and despite how much the fans would want it, it makes sense that she has not casually interacted with a certain carefree bard or a knowledgeable old man during limited events. But back to my main point, she could definitely interact with Sara. And to emphasize how much this missed potential hurts, I'll let you know that I don't even like Sara. My Sara is sitting at like level 20 because I don't use her. I didn't even bother to read her in-game backstory until making this video. I'm not saying she deserves more because she's my favorite character, she's not. That's Shinyan. But frankly, Sara hasn't even been allowed to be a character. Sara does have canon interactions with other Inazuma characters, but they're almost entirely off-screen.
You know what? Yeah, she beat me during the Vision Hunt decree. I'm not ashamed to admit it. When you lose, you admit defeat. And when you screw up, you take it on the chin like a man. And anyway, let's not forget which one of us won't agree to a rematch. Her, the Tengu warrior. It's just a sumo street fight. I mean, what you so afraid of? If she keeps snubbing me, I'm gonna have to stop calling her Kujo Tengu and start calling her Kujo Chicken. We'll see what she thinks of that.
Which comes back to my issue earlier of her potential not involving the Traveler, I guess. We only hear secondhand accounts of Sara because her life exists outside the sphere of hijinks that follow the protagonist. She's all business in her on-screen appearances because she's only there as her job. But she doesn't have to be. Please, Hoyoverse, just come up with an excuse and give her a hangout quest. Lastly, I should discuss world lore potential. This is an area that so far Genshin has been pretty good about. There's more lore than can ever be a main focus, but a lot of the extra lore, such as from books or artifact set stories, does eventually get its time in the limelight. For example, if you ever read the descriptions of the Tenacity of the Millelith artifact set, the Chasm storyline with Yelan and Zhao would have been far less surprising. And I like that. When you set up hints to a story, and then those hints expand into the main focus, it makes people who paid attention to the optional details feel smart and makes the world feel well established. There's some things that haven't paid off well so far. I think the past of Mondstadt is very interesting, but the period between the fall of Decarabian and the present has only mattered in Eula's quest, which I think is one of the weakest. There will probably be more about it later, maybe when Venti finally gets another quest, or whatever wild in-game speculation you want to have about the God of Time, etc., etc. But there's also been a lot of details set up from the very start of the game that have had really good payoffs years later, and I'm sure there's more to come. The lore is good. I guess one last note to throw in is maybe we can have more quests that don't directly involve the Traveler. So far the camera has barely strayed from the Traveler's point of view, but in the final act of the Sumeru Archon quest, we got a lot of cutaways to other characters doing things when the Traveler wasn't around. While at the time it felt like a very strange break from how the rest of the story had been presented, there is definitely potential to continue along those lines to see more things that the Traveler isn't involved with that aren't just flashbacks. Anyway, thank you for listening to me complain about how Sara has been done dirty and deserves more attention. If you want to hear more about Genshin from me, let me know. I have a couple other things I could say about it, but I'm going to bounce over to some other topic for another video now. See ya.